The pictures you saw in the paper don't compare to what I captured. Oh my God, I said. I have the whole tape, and I can give you a copy if you want, she said. I filmed it with my camera, so it's okay. Would you like to see it? Why not? I said. She handed me the tablet and turned on the video. I saw Linda walk into the parking lot, their hands intertwined like Linda and I usually did. When they got to his car, he turned her around to him, and they started kissing. Looking at it, no one could have guessed that she was married to someone else. When the video ended, I gave her the tablet back. Like I said, I'm really sorry about what happened. She said. I quickly gathered up a few things and sent them to the paper, and then I went back to the house. When I got there, you were gone. So, you want to tell me your side of the whole thing? I nodded my head and recalled the evening from my point of view. Then, I pulled out my phone and held it out to her along with a pair of headphones. You should take a look at them, I told her. The video is pretty graphic. I'm a big girl now, she said, putting headphones in her ears. While she was doing this, food was brought to us. As I ate, I watched her reaction. At first, she didn't react in any way, but as the video went on, her face changed. When she finished, she handed me back my phone. Well, I asked, it confirms some of the things I've heard. She said, mostly, it's just locker room talk, bragging, and stuff like that. But there have been rumors on social media for a long time that he's a bit of a player. I've never been able to prove any of that. Good old boy network and all that, they seem to have each other's backs, if you know what I mean. I can imagine, I said. So what are you going to do? I'm going to get a divorce, I said. She knew about my views on fidelity when she did it, but she obviously didn't care. She got hers, and now it's over between us. Any kids? She asked. 2, a boy and a girl, I said, 6 and 4 years old. She shook her head. It's always hardest on the kids, she said. It is, I told her. What about him, Mark? She asked. I shrugged. I don't know yet, I said. I'm still thinking about it. Part of me wants to beat his ass into the pavement, but I don't want to go to jail. He's a star soccer player, she said. No offense, but I don't think you'd get very far if you tried. I chuckled. What's so funny? She asked. Let's just say this isn't the first time someone's underestimated me, I said. Size isn't everything, you know. What does that mean? She asked. My dad used to tell me that it's not the size of the dog in the fight that matters, it's the size of the fight in the dog, I said. She nodded her head. I see, she said. So you want to cause trouble? No, I said. I have 2 kids to think about, but I'm not going to just pick up and play dead. Have you talked to a lawyer yet? She asked. I didn't have time, and besides, this all just happened last night, I said. She pulled a card out of her purse and held it out to me. A good friend of mine is a family law attorney, she said. She hates crooks passionately and isn't too fond of Lavalier. I'll call her and give her a heads up if you want. I looked at the card. Lisa Hawkins, attorney at law, the inscription read. Sure, thanks, I said. I don't mean to look a gift horse in the mouth, but I have to ask, why are you helping me so much? It's a fair question, she said. Being a reporter, I can smell a good story. I'd like to be the one to tell yours if you don't mind. Besides, I like it when guys like Lavalier get what they deserve, so it's something personal to you? I asked. A little, she said. So what do you want from me? I asked. An exclusive, something like that, she said. What exactly does that mean? I asked. It means you're letting me tell my side of the story, letting us control the flow of information, she said. We? I asked. Yes, she said. Lisa and I. And what do I get out of it? I asked her. For starters, a defense against people like me who would want to know your story, she said. I know how people like Lavalier work. This story is blowing up in my face. I'm sure he and his people are already working on turning it around so that you end up looking bad. That's what they're doing, trust me. If you go half-cocked, they will chew you up and spit you out so fast before you know it. And don't expect the national sports media to give you a break, trust me. They're just as vicious as anyone else in the news business. You're going to need someone who knows how to deal with sharks, and they'll come after you as soon as they spot it. So what do we do? I asked. Have you thought about making a case against Lavalier? She asked. Yes, I've thought about that, I said. I've thought about a lot of other things too. All right, she said. Let me take a little time and see what they're going to do. I'd like to publish a short note in tomorrow's paper that you're considering legal action for the destruction of your marriage and your family. Would that be okay with you? I pondered her question for a moment before answering. I knew she was right, and I also knew that it wouldn't be long before Linda's identity would become public. Perhaps it would be best if I was out in the open before they had a chance to humiliate me further. Okay, I said, but we'll work on it together, and I'll have veto power if I think it will hurt the kids. Agreed, she said. I'll make some calls, and we'll get into action. By the way, you should know that the local news stations will be covering this tonight. I've already been contacted by several of them. What did you tell them? I asked. I haven't said anything yet, she said. I wanted to talk to you first. I appreciate that, I said. We finished our meal and said goodbye. I hoped I was doing the right thing. Looking at the time, I decided to go over to the kids' house and talk to the parents about the whole mess. Checking my phone, I saw that there were no calls or messages from Linda. I got to my parents' house and went inside. My children ran up to me, and I hugged them tightly and kissed them. Where's Mom? Emma asked. She's with her parents, I said. Why? Asked Emma. She has some things to take care of, I said, not wanting to give away too much and too soon. My folks came into the room, and we cuddled for a bit before sitting down. Are you okay, son? My father asked. I shook my head. Not really, Dad, I said. I'm better than I was, but it's still hard. I understand, he said. Just then, the news came on the television. My father is a news buff, so he turned on the TV, and we sat and watched the reports, despite the objections of the two children who thought it was boring. However, a few minutes after the program started, something happened that caught our attention. And now on to our Talk of the Town segment, the male anchor said. The Daily Record reported this morning that star soccer player Mark Lavalier was spotted leaving a local nightclub with a new girlfriend. A video published by the newspaper shows them leaving the club and getting into his car. The scene switched to a short video that had been posted online earlier that day. Linda and were clearly seen walking hand in hand, and she was easily recognizable as she turned around to kiss him. Daddy, why is Mommy kissing that man? Asked Emma, shocked. Is he her boyfriend? Just watch the news, Emma, I told her. Timmy didn't understand everything his sister was saying, but it was clear he wasn't happy. The anchor continued, we spoke with Audrey Tanis, the reporter who broke the story, and she told us that the woman, who happens to be married, has been identified. Tanis said her husband did not authorize the release of her name. We reached out to Lavalier and Shark Management but received no comment. According to Tanis, more information will be forthcoming, possibly as early as tomorrow. Dad turned off the TV, and Mom hurried into the bedroom where the kids were sleeping. Come on, kids, she said, ushering them into the other room. Dad turned to me. What are you going to do, son? He asked. I'm getting a divorce, Dad, I said. He nodded his head. I don't blame you, he said. You know it probably means she gets the kids and you lose everything financially. Maybe, I said. But there's no way I could live with her, not after this. By the way, I talked to the reporter who broke the story. Yay? He asked. Yes, I said. She offered to tell me everything and help me out. The next few days aren't going to be much fun. This is just the beginning. When this all hits the media, it's going to be a circus. By this time, my mom had returned and sat down next to us. The kids can stay here for a while if they need to, she said. At least this way they won't be bothered by a bunch of nosy reporters. Mom's right, son, Dad said. They can stay here as long as they need to. I thought for a moment before I answered. You're right, I said. Thank you. I'll get some more of their stuff tomorrow. If you need anything else, let me know. Linda will want to see them, Mom said. Technically, we can't stop her, not without a restraining order. I know, I said. God, it's so messed up. Why did she do it? Surely she must have known it wouldn't end well. It's hard to say, son, my father said. You do what you have to do. We'll help in any way we can. Just don't do anything stupid. Thanks, Dad, I said. We hugged, and I went to the kids. Little Emma came up to me with tears in her eyes. Are you going to get a divorce? She asked. I could lie to her and pretend everything was going to be okay. I guess so, honey, I said. But remember, no matter what happens, we all love you very, very much. I hugged her, and she cried on my shoulder. Damn you, Linda, I thought. Damn you, bastard. After spending some time with the kids, I went back to the front room. I have to go, I said. I need to clean the house a little. My mom came out with a dish of lasagna. Take this with you, she said. You need to keep your strength up. Thanks, Mom, I said, taking the dish. I love lasagna, and Mom's lasagna was the best lasagna I had ever eaten. We said our goodbyes, and I headed home. When I got home, I put the lasagna in the fridge, then checked Linda's Facebook page and saw that the post was still hanging. By this point, it had been viewed by over 500,000 people, and several comments had been left. Most of them were negative, with the kindest ones calling her a. I also noticed that she had lost almost 3/4 of her friends. I smiled to myself and shut down the computer. I had cleaned up after the night's rampage and was getting ready to heat up the lasagna my mom had given me when I heard the doorbell ring. I thought, went to the door, and looked through the peephole. It was Dee and Dave. What the hell did they want? I opened the door slightly. What the hell do you want? I growled. They both jumped back in shock. Can we talk, Jim? Asked Dee, with tears in her eyes. Please? Why? I asked. Because we're friends, and we're worried about you, she said. I snorted. Friends? I asked. With friends like you, who the hell needs enemies? Please, Jim, can we come in and talk for just a minute? Pleaded Dave. I thought for a moment, then decided to let them come in. They looked around, shocked. All of Linda's things were gone, but what was left of the destroyed wedding portrait still hung over the fireplace. So, what do you want? I asked, pouring myself a cup of coffee. I didn't offer them anything, and I could tell they noticed that. However, they didn't say anything. Jim, first of all, we want to apologize for last night, Dee said. I saw the video you emailed us and read the report. We didn't know it was going to be that bad, and we just wanted to apologize. You didn't know, did you? I asked mockingly. But you knew she was married last night when you practically pushed her into his bed, didn't you? Yes, it is, Dee said. What's more, Linda knew she was married when she left with him, I added. The simple truth is that neither of you cared, not even Linda. You all knew she was married, but none of you even thought enough of me to try and stop her. You couldn't put it between her legs fast enough. You couldn't. They looked at each other in shame. All that about one and done doesn't mean right, I asked. Probably not, Dee stammered. You know Linda's really upset right now. We're really worried about her. All she does is lay on her mom's bed and cry. I'm afraid she's about to have a nervous breakdown, Dave said. I walked over to the bookcase and pulled a thick dictionary from the shelf. I tossed it onto the coffee table. The noise it made as it fell made them both jump. You want sympathy? I asked, nodding my head toward the dictionary. Look between synergy and syphilis, and you'll find it there. You won't get it from me, and neither will she. They looked at me, shocked. My God, that really destroyed you, didn't it? Asked Dave. You don't understand, I said. I'm just about as close to tipping my hat at someone right now, I said, holding my thumb and index finger 1/32 inch apart. Other than the fact that I don't own a gun, the only reason I haven't is because someone has to think about the kids. God knows neither you nor Linda thought about that last night. So, it's true that you flushed your rings down the toilet and told her she was dead to you, Dee said. I nodded my head. Yeah, I said. She messed up our marriage, and I just finished what she started. And what are you going to do now? Asked Dave. There should be no doubt about that, I said. Thanks to all of you, I've been humiliated in front of the whole damn world. This article has already gone viral and has racked up at least 1 million views. Anyone who knows Linda can clearly see that it's her, so I have no choice. I have to divorce her nasty ass. And you'll be named too, I added, pointing at Dee. Because for all practical purposes, you helped her destroy our family. That's the same as being an accessory to a crime. You could have stopped her, but you consciously chose not to. And then you tried to justify what you did to me. By the way, have you told your husband about what you told me yet? Dave looked at her, frowning. His eyebrows, what did you say to him? He asked. She looked down at the floor, her face flushed. He looked at me before he spoke. What did she say to you? She told me that if had approached her instead of Linda, she would have gladly done the same thing Linda did and was very proud of it, I said angrily. He turned to her. Is that so? He asked. We'll discuss it when we get home, she said. I shrugged. That's too bad, I said. I think your husband deserves to know what kind of woman he's married to, don't you? So, that's it then, she asked quietly. I said nothing, nodding my head. Yeah, I thought she's sorry. Dave held out his hand, then thought for a moment and yanked it away. I'm sorry too, he said. We're all sorry, I guess. I'll see you later. I hummed in response, not wanting to say anything to my former friends. I watched them walk away, Dee wiping the tears from her face. I closed the door, locked it, and went into the kitchen to get dinner. After that, I laid down on the bed in exhaustion. I fell fast asleep. The next day, I got up, did my morning ritual, and grabbed a newspaper from the porch before making coffee. I looked at the large cast-iron skillet Linda had on the stove and considered making scrambled eggs and bacon, but changed my mind after devouring a bowl of cereal and a slice of toast. I opened the newspaper and turned to the sports section. Cheating husband considering lawsuit against Sharks tight end, Mark Lavalier, read the large headline. This has to be good, I thought. Audrey did an excellent job of retelling what I had told her the day before. I noticed that she'd avoided my name, saying I'd spoken to her on condition of anonymity. The man who identified himself as the woman's husband also provided a video that clearly shows a relationship between the woman, who he said was his wife, and Lavalier, the article states. According to the husband, his wife's friends allegedly helped her escape with Lavalier. Attempts to contact these people have so far been unsuccessful. Like all other players on the team, Lavalier's contract with the team includes a very strict morals clause. Violation and noncompliance with this clause could result in litigation with the team. We reached out to team management and Lavalier for comment. We received no response from the team, and Lavalier simply said, no comment. The article concluded. Satisfied, I closed the paper and sipped my coffee. My phone buzzed, and I looked up to find a message from Audrey. Hope you read the paper this morning, the message read. I replied, yes, it is a great article. Thanks, I wrote back. I received another message. YVW. You're welcome. It was followed by another, expect a call very soon. TTFN. I thanked her again and put the phone back in my pocket. Sure enough, a few seconds later, it buzzed. I looked and saw that I was getting a call from an unfamiliar number. "I'm Jim Carlisle," I said. "Mr. Carlisle, this is Lisa Hawkins," said a friendly female voice. "I got your number from Audrey Tanis and wanted to call you. I hope I didn't catch you at a bad time." "There are no good times these days," I said, "but I'm glad you called, Miss Hawkins. What can I do for you?" "Well, more like what I can do for you," she said. "For starters, just call me Lisa, okay?" "Lisa," I said. "And please, call me Jim." "Thank you, Jim," she said. "Audrey told me about you last night, and I wanted to contact you after you read her article." "I assume you've read it?" "Yes," I said, "and I thought she did a pretty good job." "I thought so too," she said. "Look, Jim, I'd like to represent you if you don't mind. Is it true that you're considering legal action against Lavalier and the team, in addition to divorcing your wife?" "Yes, it is," I said. "Well, you're in luck," she said. "Not only is adultery a permissible ground for divorce in this state, but it's against the law, even though it's not enforced, and suits for alienation of affection are also allowed in this state. I think you have a very strong case. I understand you have children?" "Yes," I said, "two, a boy and a girl." "Will you seek custody?" she asked. "Absolutely," I said. "It might be a little complicated, but we can certainly ask for it." "Look, I'd like to start putting the case together today," she said. "I'd like you to bring everything you can regarding your finances and any evidence you have of their affair. Can you meet me in my office tomorrow morning, say 8 o'clock? "Yes," I said. "I can do that." "What about the fee? Don't you need an advance or something?" "Usually, yes," she said, "but in any case, I'm willing to do it pro bono for you." "Thank you, but why would you want to do that?" I asked. "I'll tell you someday, just not now, over the phone," she said. "Okay," I said. "One last thing, Jim," she said. "What's that?" I asked. "After this morning's article, you will probably hear from the Sharks legal team," she said. "Don't give in to them." "Absolutely not," I said. "Just tell them they can expect a call from your lawyer." "Can you do that?" "Of course," I said. "All right," she said. "And don't do anything stupid." I chuckled. "I won't, I promise." We said goodbye and ended the conversation. Looking at the time, I decided to go to the kids. I went back upstairs and put on a clean pair of jeans and a shirt. When I got back, someone was banging on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw two well-dressed men in dark suits, probably from the Sharks. I thought, remembering Lisa's warning. I opened the door. "What can I do for you?" I asked calmly. "Miss Cares," said one of the men. "My name is Roger Billings, and this is Jack Dunan. We're from the Sharks. Can we come inside and talk for a few minutes?" Suddenly, I recognized Dunstan from pictures I had seen in newspapers and on TV. He was the owner of the Sharks. I figured Roger was probably a lawyer. I opened the door and invited them inside. "Please come in," I said. "May I offer you something to drink?" "No, but thanks anyway," Jack said. "We won't take up much of your time. We're only here to discuss your problem with Mark Lavalier's graduation." I asked, "You mean he ruined my marriage and my family? Is that the issue you're talking about?" "Well, yeah," Jack said, clearly confused by my words. He turned to Roger. "Show him the proposal, and let's get this over with, please." Roger opened his briefcase and pulled out an envelope and a folder. He handed me the envelope and indicated that I should open it. I opened it, and as I looked inside, I was shocked. I could feel my face turning red as I looked at the two men. "Is everything all right, Mr. Carlisle?" asked Jack. "You've got to be kidding me," I said. "Is there a problem, Mr. Carlisle?" asked Roger. "Everything seems to be in order." $1,000? I asked. You're offering me $1,000 for what he did to me and my family? That's not an offer, that's a goddamn insult. Wait a minute, Mr. Carlisle, Jack said. That doesn't include lifetime season passes and anything else you want from our gift store. That costs a lot of money. I almost laughed out loud. And this is in exchange for what? I asked. Roger opened the folder and showed me the unsigned document. According to this document, we ask that you not file a lawsuit against the team or Mr. Lavalier, he said. I looked at the document and couldn't believe what I read. And you won't do anything to Lavalier? I asked. What about the morals clause in his contract? Roger shrugged. Listen, Mr. Carlisle, Jack said condescendingly, boys will be boys. Mr. Lavalier is a respected member of the team with a very high standing in the community. All we're asking you to do is reconsider the decision to prosecute. We don't want anyone's reputation tarnished, surely you can understand that. As far as I'm concerned, Lavalier ruined my marriage, I said, and he's already ruined my reputation. Articles and pictures of him with my wife have already circulated. What about my 2 children? How are you going to make up for the loss of their mother and family? Do you think season tickets and flashy clothes will make up for it? What do you want us to do? Asked Jack, condescendingly. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you can entertain my wife or turn back the clock to Thursday and keep from meeting her for the first time, I said, wryly. Better yet, why don't you kick some balls around the soccer field a few times, live on the air? Hell, I'd even pay to watch that. Both men looked at me, shocked. We can't do any of that, Mr. Carlisle, said Roger. Perhaps you'd like to make a counteroffer, Roger suggested. You will listen to my attorney. This meeting is over. Please leave. They looked at each other, then stood up. Jack held out his hand to shake mine, but I didn't take it. They nodded their heads and walked out the door. After they left, I called Lisa to let her know what had happened. Then I called my parents and went over to their house to spend some time with the kids. Emma was still shocked to see Linda kissing another man. I talked to the parents for a while and decided to take the kids to Chuck E. Cheese's and then pick up their stuff. We had a good time, and for a couple of hours, they were kids again, laughing and playing. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end sometime, and this occasion was no exception. They grumbled a bit but joined me as we walked to the car. We went to their rooms and packed up their things to take them to their grandparents' house, and then went back downstairs. The next thing I knew, the front door swung open. I saw that the door jamb was broken, and the next thing I realized was that he was standing there, in all his rage, looking at me. You goddamn bastard, he shouted. I'm going to hurt you for everything you've done. All I wanted was a piece of ass, but you made a big goddamn federal case out of it. I tried to speak, but couldn't as his fist caught up to my face and threw me back. After the stars disappeared from my vision, I realized that I needed to find something to defend myself, as I knew it wasn't going to be all about fists alone. I was filled with rage, and I remembered the iron skillet on the stove. He fell to the floor, and I dropped the frying pan, but my rage didn't subside. Drop the frying pan, sir, the man said. I let go of the cast iron skillet and turned around, hearing it hit the floor. Stay where you are, hands behind your head, I obeyed the policeman's order and put my hands behind my head. He put my hands behind my back and handcuffed me. After making sure I was no longer a threat, he lifted me to my feet. Officer, he broke into my house, I said. I know, he said. Your neighbor across the street saw him kicking in the door and called 911. I got here as fast as I could. Are you okay? Damn, was I really that fast? I asked myself. My face hurts like hell, I said. He looked at me and nodded his head. Yeah, you're going to have a bruise, that's for sure, he said. He walked over to Emma and examined her. Thankfully, physically she was fine, but she was shaken and scared. He called on the radio and came back to me. Officer, can I call the parents to come get the kids? I asked. He looked away for a moment before answering. Do you have a gun? He asked. I shook my head. No, officer, that's why I grabbed the frying pan, I said. Okay, he said, releasing me from the handcuffs, but I'm going to have to take your statement. Thank you, I said. Am I going to be arrested? I don't think so, he said. I think he broke into your house, attacked you and your daughter. You were just protecting your children. Unless they tell me otherwise, no, I'm not going to arrest you. I will arrest him, though. I grabbed my phone, which had fallen out of my pocket when he hit me. I called my parents, and my dad said he'd be right over. By then, an ambulance pulled up in front of our house, and the paramedics went inside. They examined Emma to make sure she was okay, then examined me before turning their attention to who was lying unconscious on the floor. As they wheeled him out on a gurney, my dad made his way home. What the hell happened? He asked, walking into the house. We had an unwanted guest, I said. He watched my face for a second. Damn boy, this is going to be a mess for a long time, he said. He looked at Emma, who was crying on the couch. He took her in his arms and hugged her. It's okay, honey. The bad man is gone. He looked around for a moment. Where's Timmy? Timmy was hiding under the table, barely visible because of the long tablecloth. We saw him peeking out from under the table. It's all right, son, I said. You can come out now. He crawled out from under the table and came toward us. My father looked at the policeman. Can we leave? He asked. The policeman nodded his head. Yes, that's all right, he said. I'll need to have a little talk with your son, but you don't have to be here. Thank you, he said. He gathered up the kids and their things, then turned back to me. Come back when they're done, okay? I will, Daddy. Thank you, I said. I hugged the kids and kissed them goodbye, telling them I'd be there soon. After they left, the policeman and I sat on the couch while he wrote down my statement. I couldn't believe it had all happened so quickly. Good thing your neighbor across the street called in time, the cop said. I was only a couple blocks away when I got the call. I've been following this Lavalier story. Was that your wife he was seen with? I nodded my head. Yes, I said. I'm sorry to hear that, he said. Feel free to call if you need someone to talk to, he added, handing me a card with the counselor's name and number on it. Thank you, officer. I appreciate it, I said. He left after shaking my hand, and I was left standing in the front room looking at the remains of my front door. Fred, the neighbor who had called the police, came over and examined the door as well. Are you all right, Jim? He asked. I do now, I said. I appreciate you calling the police. No problem. I saw him kicking the door and happened to be out front with a lawnmower. What did you do with this guy? Cleaned my watch with a frying pan, if you can believe it, I said. He laughed. Remind me never to piss you off, he said. Just curious, why did he kick in your door? It wasn't locked or anything, was it? No, it wasn't, I said. And the security screen wasn't even locked. All he had to do was turn the doorknob. Apparently, he was too angry to try. Well, I think we can still close the door, but the jam's completely disintegrated, he said. I guess we'll have to screw it down until you can replace it. I'll get a drill and screws and help you if you want. That would be great, Fred, I said. Thanks. I'll go get my drill. With Fred's help, we managed to close the door, but I had to bolt it because he had done damage to it when he kicked it with his foot. Luckily, the deadbolt wasn't locked at that point, and I was able to use it. That'll do it, he said. Let me know when you get a replacement, and I'll help you put it in. Thanks again, I said. Just one more thing my wife's cheating managed to ruin, I thought to myself. I quickly made 2 calls, one to Lisa and one to Audrey. Lisa wasn't very happy that I had mopped the floor with Zeus Ron's with a frying pan, but she was glad it was all over and even happier that I wasn't in jail and the kids were relatively okay. She was, however, amused by the fact that Lavalier was in the hospital and would be arrested. Audrey told me she heard the call on the police scanner and had already talked to the reporter who covers police calls. "You know I can't remain anonymous anymore," she said. "It's all going to be in the police report." "I know," I told her. We talked some more, and she told me to stay tuned. "Everyone will be talking about it now," she said. After we finished talking, I went upstairs and showered again. When I looked in the mirror, my eye was already black and blue. I decided I needed to make another call and dialed my boss's number. I explained the situation and told him I needed to take a few days to get things straightened out, she said. "You had a hell of a weekend." "That's okay. You've got a lot of free time ahead of you, so take a week and figure it out." "Okay, I will." "Thanks, boss," I said. We finished talking, and I headed off to see my parents and kids. Linda pulled up to their house at the same time I did. I wasn't expecting her to show up, and I didn't know what to expect. I got out of the car just as she did, and we met on the walkway leading to the front door. She was shocked when she saw me. "Oh my God, are you okay?" she asked. I shook my head. "What happened?" "It's a little late to worry about my well-being, don't you think?" I asked sarcastically. "You want to know what happened?" "Your lover happened. He came to the house to pick a fight." "Yes, it is," I said. "Don't worry, I cleaned his clock with your big frying pan." Did you hurt him?" she asked. "Please don't tell me you hurt him." I couldn't believe what she was saying. "He's been taken to the hospital," I said. "I don't know what condition he's in, and frankly, I don't care. All I know is that he'll be in police custody for a while. They're pressing charges against him." "By the way, why are you here?" "I came to see my kids," she said. "I missed them, and I haven't seen them since, you know." "You mean since the night you left us to be with?" I asked her roughly. "It's only been, 36 hours, and you're just now thinking about them?" "Please don't call him that," she said. "That man ruined our marriage, Linda, and you helped him without a second thought for me or the children," I said, my anger building. "He ruined our family. I'd say that makes him of the highest order, and you're defending him." I walked into the house, and she followed me. When we got inside, everyone looked in our direction. The children huddled close to their grandmother, who was now in character as Mama Grizzly. "What do you want, Linda?" she hissed. "I want to see my children," Linda said. Timmy looked frightened. He clung even tighter to my mother. Emma looked at my mother, unable to hide her disgust. "Why did you kiss that man, Mommy?" she asked. "What man?" asked Linda. "That man," Emma said, pointing to the TV. We looked over and saw Laval's face on the screen. "This just came into Eyewitness News," read the news anchor. Sharks tight end Mark Laval is reportedly facing multiple charges tonight after he allegedly kicked in the door at the home of a woman he was seeing with Friday night. According to police reports, he assaulted the woman's husband. The report says the husband defended the home with a large cast-iron skillet. Laval is currently at a county hospital being treated for a serious head wound and other injuries, the anchor reported. The district attorney said charges will be filed, and Laval will be taken into custody when his medical condition improves. Sharks team management just released a statement saying Laval is suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. The scene changed to show Roger and Jack standing behind a microphone. "We regret to report that tight end Mark Laval is currently in the hospital being treated for a head wound and other injuries," Jack said. "We have read the police report and would like to apologize to the family he allegedly assaulted. For the record, we contacted the husband and made what we believe was a more than reasonable offer. However, he declined it." "How do you respond to the pending charges?" one reporter asked. "As far as we can tell, these charges include terroristic threats, breaking and entering, assault and battery," Roger said. "We have no comment at this time. However, we have suspended Mr. Laval pending the outcome of the investigation. At this point, he is still unconscious, so we have yet to hear his version of what happened." That's all for today, thank you. The scene moved to the studio. This is breaking news, the anchor said. Stay tuned to Eyewitness News as it becomes available. Everyone turned to Linda as the report ended. Oh my God, she said quietly. Unconscious? What other injuries are they talking about, Jim? What did you do to him? That's right, I said. Show concern for your lover. If you must know, I hit him several times. Linda started to approach Emma, but the girl recoiled. My mother spoke up. Haven't you done enough for these children? She asked. With this family, I think it would be wise for you to leave now, Linda, my father said, while you still can. And Linda, my mom said, you will never be welcome in this house again. With tears in her eyes, Linda looked at the children, at my mother, then at my father, and finally at me. There wasn't an ounce of sympathy for her in the room. She turned and headed for the door. It was just one night, she sobbed as she left. After she left, I hugged the children, and they cried on my shoulder. Eventually, they quieted down. I kissed them both goodnight, and after saying goodbye, I left. When I got home, I reminded myself to enter through the garage since the front door didn't work. As I entered the house, the phone buzzed. I looked and saw it was calling me from LV, a close family friend who had recently retired after working for many years as an attorney. He was one of the smartest and wisest people I knew and the best friend to a family like ours. Hi, LV, I said when I answered. Hey, you, the old man said. I saw that report. I've been following the story and I recognized Linda from the pictures in the paper. Are you and the kids okay? Not really, I said. Is it true that you cleaned Lavalier watch with a frying pan? He asked. Yes, it's true, I said. He laughed. Good for you, he said. I take it you're divorcing Linda? Yes, I told him. Is there no chance you can negotiate with her? He asked. I'd hate to see you break up. No chance, LV, I said. I told him about the videotapes Lavalier had sent and what he'd said. Well, that complicates matters somewhat, he said. Have you talked to a lawyer yet? I have an appointment with Lisa Hawkins in the morning, I said. Hawkins, huh? He asked. The Ice Queen herself. The Ice Queen? I asked. Yeah, she's cold as ice in the courtroom, he said. If you need scorched earth, she's your girl. But she's also one of the most expensive family law attorneys in the state. Are you sure you can afford her? She said she'd take my case pro bono, I said. Really? Asked LV. Any idea why? No, not one, I said. Maybe you should ask, he said. We'll talk some more about this and that. If I can help you in any way, let me know. Thanks, I told him, ending the conversation. I ate a little dinner, then picked up the things Lisa said she needed to see. I climbed into bed and fell soundly asleep. The next morning, after breakfast, I was out the door halfway to Lisa's office when my phone rang. I saw that it was a call from Linda's mother, and I answered it using a Bluetooth headset so I wouldn't get caught talking on the phone while driving. Jim, you have to go to the hospital, she said frantically. Why? I asked. It's Linda, she said. She tried to kill herself last night, took an overdose of sleeping pills and some alcohol. She's been put down and her stomach pumped, but she's still out of danger. Tried to unhook herself and screwed up too, huh? I asked coldly. Sorry, I have an emergency right now. Maybe I can swing by her place after the meeting, I said. Jim, she's still your wife and the mother of your children, she said. And she's in the hospital. Don't you have feelings for her at all? Why do you think she's there? I asked. And do you think she even thought about the kids when she left with that, or about me? I have an appointment with my lawyer. I can swing by her place when I'm done. Please, Jim, she's a total wreck, she said. It completely destroyed her. She has no one to blame but herself. I said, how can you be so cold? She asked. Linda loves you and the children. I feel the love, I tell you. I'd better be going, I said. I'll look in on you when I'm done. She gave me the room number, and I hung up after saying goodbye. I made my way to the parking lot downtown and then headed towards the building where Lisa's office was located. I was greeted by an attractive young brunette receptionist who directed me to a chair in the waiting area. Summoning Lisa a few minutes later, a petite blonde woman in a pantsuit came out and ushered me inside. Once in the office, she turned and held out her hand to me. "I'm Lisa Hawkins," she said with a smile. "It's nice to finally meet you, Jim." "Likewise," I said, though I wish it had happened under more favorable circumstances. "Me too," she said. "Well, let's get right to the point, shall we? Did you bring the information I asked for?" "Yes," I said, pulling out a folder with all of our financial information. I also handed her the USB drive with the videos Lavalier had sent me. She took a quick look through it all, nodding her head and making notes as she went. "So," she said, finishing, "here's what I think we should do. We'll file a petition citing adultery as grounds for divorce. In this state, adultery can be used as leverage against any form of alimony. Plus, it looks like you both make almost the same amount of money. Usually, the state splits everything in half, but in your case, I think we may be able to get a little more. We'll ask for physical custody, but you should know that in most cases, the court awards it to the mother unless there's nothing to indicate she's unfit to be a mother." "Well, she tried to kill herself last night," I said. Her eyes sparkled as she smiled. "Very interesting," she said. "I suppose you could make the argument that a person who attempts suicide isn't mentally stable enough to take care of children. And, as you said, her lover attacked your family. That reminds me, I need to apply for a restraining order against her and Lavalier, even though he's in the hospital and will be charged." "Especially since he'll be facing charges?" I asked. "He's already shown he's willing to break into a house and attack you," she said. "I would say that makes him dangerous, and I think the court would agree with that. Just because he's been charged doesn't mean the court won't let him out on bail or on his own recognizance. By the way, do you have a gun?" I shook my head. "No, I don't," I said. "That's why I used a frying pan." She laughed. "Okay," she said. "Remind me never to piss you off, at least not in the kitchen. By the way, where are your kids now?" "At my parents' house," I said. "Okay, we'll include them in the restraining order," she said, then she pulled out another packet of documents. "I've also started working on a lawsuit against Lavalier and the team," she said. "You should know that usually alienation of affection lawsuits don't go very far. However, I think your case will be helped by the videos he sent you and the allegations stemming from his assault on you, your home, and your daughter. I did a little research and found out that with everything included, he is worth about $125 million. I think $122.5 million would be a reasonable figure considering what he did to you and your family. That doesn't mean you'll get that amount, but it's worth a shot since we know he's done this to other people. Maybe we'll find out if they'd be willing to come forward. Maybe we can make it a class action suit. What do you say?" "You're a lawyer," I said. "You do what you think is right." "Okay," she said. "It won't be easy, but we can try. I think we can make similar claims against the team since all players are required to sign a morals agreement. However, it depends on what they do with it after the charges are filed. You have to know it will be an uphill battle." "I've already figured it out," I said. "If anything, I think the divorce itself can be settled pretty quickly. Adultery is still considered a misdemeanor in this state, even though no one has ever been prosecuted for it. I don't agree with that law, but it's still on the books. But we can use it to our advantage. If she tries to contest the divorce, we can use that as leverage. If she doesn't contest the divorce, it could be finalized in as little as 3 to 6 months. Litigation will take more time and work, but I think we'll end up ahead in the end." "Any questions?" "Just one," I said. "What is it?" she asked. You said you were doing this pro bono, I said. Why are you doing it? You know you're not the only one Lavalier has hurt, right? I nodded my head. He seduced my fiancée years ago before he became the star he is now. Wait, what? I asked. I'm sorry to hear that. Is he bisexual or something? She shook her head. No, not at all, she said. But apparently my then fiancé was. I was still confused, and it was obviously reflected on my face. She smiled and explained. We got engaged after the 2015 Obergefell decision allowed same-sex marriage nationwide. The situation was similar to yours. She fell in love with him at first sight, about the same as your wife. After that, things were never the same between us. I broke off the engagement, and frankly, I wanted to get back at him, but the opportunity never came until you came along. Most of his victims usually hid in shame after becoming cuckolds. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Are you two still friends? We're friends, but I wouldn't say we're friends, she said. I've moved on, and so has she. She stopped and gave me a serious look before continuing. Does my lifestyle bother you? She asked. I shook my head. Not at all, I said, making her smile. Good, she said. I'm glad to hear you say that. So, you and Audrey Tanis are together? I asked. She laughed and shook her head. We're good friends, but nothing more than that, she said. And no, there's nothing between us, but I wouldn't mind spending some time with her. Why? Have you thought about sleeping with her? She likes you, you know. I've never known her to take the story personally. That's the last thing on my mind right now, I said. These days, my kids are the most important thing in my life. That's the way it should be, she said. They need their father now more than ever. Look, let me get started on all this, and I'll have the divorce papers ready in a day or two. If your wife is still in the hospital, maybe we can file it there. I'd like to attend her funeral if possible, I said. I think we can arrange that, she said. She stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. I'll be in touch. Be careful, okay? I stood up, and we shook hands once more, leaving her office. I headed to the hospital to check on Linda's condition. I parked the car and headed inside. When I entered her room, her mother was talking to the doctor. I looked over and saw that Linda was hooked up to tubes running through her arms into a ventilator. She looked like hell. Oh, it's good you're finally here, her mother said. They've put her on suicide watch and are going to run tests on her. They're worried she might have brain damage since she's been unconscious for so long. I mean, she almost died. What's wrong? I asked. After she came back from seeing you and the kids, she went upstairs. I heard her crying, so I went to check on her. She said, I held her in my arms for a long time, and I thought she was fine. So, I gave her a nightcap to calm her down. When I checked on her early in the morning, I saw an open vial of sleeping pills next to her glass, which was empty. Her face was blue, and I thought she was already dead. I called 911, and they brought her in. They pumped her stomach and gave her something against the pills, but she's not in the best condition. As soon as the doctor says her condition is stable, a psychologist will come in with her. Maybe they'll keep her in the psychiatric ward for a while. I don't know how long she will be here. A few days, she said. I called her work, and they put her on sick leave, I said. Why are you going to serve her divorce papers here at the hospital if she's here? She asked. Yes, I said. How could you? She asked. It would kill her. She's already devastated enough as it is. Heavy, I said. She looked at me, shocked. Jim Carlyle, how can you be so cold and cruel? She asked. I looked at her for a moment before I spoke. I can be as cold and cruel as it takes, I said. She knew what she was doing when she left me, but she didn't care. Now she's going to have to pay for what she did to our family. I looked at Linda and saw a tear run down her cheek. I shook my head and left the room. When I got home, I did my best not to think about Linda. The first thing I needed to do was fix the door. So, I went online and priced out doors. I realized I'd have to pay for the jamb as well. Damn it, I muttered. I took measurements and ordered a new door online. I also ordered new door locks. The website said my order would be delivered the next day. So, I went to my neighbor Fred, who said he would help me hang the new door when it was delivered. The next 2 days were pretty much the same. I got up, ate, watched the news, then did chores around the house. When the door arrived, Fred and I hung it, and I replaced the door locks. Then I spent some time with my children. My parents were kind enough to drive them to school or daycare and pick them back up, but I wanted to see them as often as possible. It was hard to make them realize that their mother wouldn't be around as often as she used to. Emma was still afraid of adults, especially men, and I spent as much time with her as possible. Damn Linda for doing that, I thought. The day came when Linda was to be served with the divorce papers, and Lisa called me to let me know when the bailiff would show up. She advised me not to say anything until the papers were served. I gave her the room number and headed for the exit. I met the bailiff at the door and saw Linda's mother standing there, wiping tears from her face. "Please don't do this to her," she begged. "Not like this." I shook my head and went into the room with the bailiff. Linda was off the ventilator and lying in her bed, tears streaming down her cheeks. The bailiff approached her. "Linda Carlisle?" he asked. "It's me," she said quietly. He held out a manila envelope to her. "You have been served with a summons," he said. "In addition to the divorce papers, you will also learn that a restraining order has been issued against you and Mr. Lavalier. You are both ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from your husband, your children, your husband's residence, and the residence of his parents. This includes your husband's place of employment. Failure to comply with this order will subject you to arrest and imprisonment. Do you understand?" She nodded her head and turned to me. "We forget about it?" she asked. "It was just one night." "One night is one night too many, Linda," I said. "Emma still hasn't recovered from what your lover did to her. It never would have happened if you hadn't done what you did. Sign the papers, Linda." "But I don't want a divorce," she said. "What if I decide to fight it?" "Then I will have no choice but to formally charge you with adultery," I said. "Adultery?" she asked. "Yeah, my lawyer says adultery is a misdemeanor in this state," I said. "No one's ever been prosecuted for it yet, but there's always a first time. Just sign the papers and be done with it. If you look, you'll see that we're asking for half of what we already have in the bank. You'll also see that I'm asking for guardianship, since you don't seem to be able to take care of yourself. Once the doctor says you are fine, I will allow you to see the children if they want to see you. Right now, they don't. We're asking for a minimum amount of child support, but no more than that. You get what's yours. I get the house and what's mine. Under the circumstances, I think I'm being more than fair." "Can I at least look at them before I sign?" she asked. "Of course," I said. She read the papers, tears streaming down her cheeks. After a few minutes, she sighed and asked for a pen. The process server held one out to her and watched her sign the papers. He signed as a witness and took them from her. "I'll give them to Miss Hawkins," he said. "Have a good day." As he left the room, Linda looked at me, hot tears streaming. Together with the doctor, I listened to her relate the events that had transpired. After approximately 1 hour, the physician inquired as to whether or not I would be willing to take the children with me. After watching for a time, I shook my head in disbelief. My response was, no, she should have it. It's Christmas, after all. In addition to smiling, he nodded his head. We listened to them converse and laughed on. During the time that Linda and the children were spending together, the doctor turned his attention to me. "I'm curious, Mr. Carlisle," he stated the other day. "Where did it all go? Even while I am aware of what was reported and I am aware of her side of the story, I am still not aware of your side of the story. Do you mind if I ask you to tell me about it? There is a possibility that it will assist me in comprehending her frame of thought. My feelings and what happened were communicated to him. We can only hope that this will help to fill in some of the gaps. When I had finished, he stared at me with a considered expression. You haven't thought about reconciliation? He questioned with curiosity. I gave a slight shake of my head. That's never going to happen. I responded by saying, she made a mistake, sure, but can't you get over it somehow? He questioned me, no, document. I responded by saying, I am aware that leaving the creamer on all night is a mistake. That is something I have done. She acted in a manner that was icy and planned. She enlisted the help of her companions in order to make it happen. The moment has come for her to acknowledge the consequences of her choices and go on with her life. Could you please assist her in doing that? To be loved by her family is the only thing that she desires. He responded by saying, yeah, well, then take one in one hand and in the other and see which one fills up faster. I responded by saying, you seem to be holding a grudge. He responded by asking, how would you feel if you were me, Doc? I questioned him, wouldn't you be angry if your wife turned her back on you and left you without even saying goodbye? He agreed that he understood what I was expressing with my question. How long do you think she'll be here? I inquired about it. As he put it, it's difficult to say. At this point, she is a ward of the state. It is necessary for her to demonstrate to them that she is capable of functioning independently in society without posing a threat to other people or to herself. At this very moment, she is a very long way from that. She might remain in this location for many years. I showed my comprehension by nodding my head. We did not speak and instead observed her interacting with the youngsters through silence. At last, I became aware that Linda was beginning to feel exhausted. She has been getting tired a lot easier more frequently as of late, the physician added. After that, he approached her. It is time for you to take your prescription, Linda. Let's get started. The children have to return to their homes. After giving the children one final kiss, she gave a slight nod of her head. She gave me a look. There was a look of melancholy in her eyes. Thank you very much, Jim, she voiced her gratitude. I'd be glad if I could see them more often. My response was, yes, Linda, I am able to see that. You look really good. The question that she posed was, are you seeing anyone? I date from time to time, but nothing serious, I said to myself. I still love you, and I remember how much I miss you, she added. I gave a slight nod of my head. I miss the woman I married, I spoke my sentiments. Are you feeling all right? Wishing you a joyful Christmas season, she beamed, briefly revealing a glimpse of her former self. She extended Merry Christmas wishes to all. And thank you once again. You're welcome, I replied. As she bid me farewell, the children began to walk my way. Emma turned to her father. Daddy, could we visit her next week? Please, chimed in young Timmy. Yes, may we? I believe we can arrange something, I reassured myself. Let's get you all home, all right? Thus began a bi-monthly routine. Sometimes I picked up the children, but usually it was Linda's mother. Occasionally, we exchanged brief conversations, though we avoided discussing. Despite knowing I wouldn't return to her, she seemed to find solace in our brief encounters. Exactly a year and a few days after that fateful Friday when our lives changed, the first COVID-19 death was reported in the U.S. on February 29th. February truly had a knack for disappointment, didn't I mention? The following month brought lockdown orders. It didn't go smoothly, to say the least. It'll be 2 years soon since Linda left with Zeus Rons, and while things are still tough, they're not as dire. For instance, in June 2020, the Lavalier team surrendered and settled a class action lawsuit. Lisa was right, it amounted to nothing in the end. Despite the modest settlement, it was reassuring knowing he was finally done for good. He lost everything: his money, fame, societal hero status, even his virility. Linda couldn't help but smile. Maybe next February won't be as bleak as the last two, or at least not as disappointing. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to my channel and watching the next video.